And welcome to the Keys to Therapy. Today's guest is Tamara. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We are so excited to have you here on the channel today and talk about all the things that you have going on. And I personally am really excited because this topic is something that I want to get into in the near future. So I feel like I'm going to learn a lot today, which I
Oh,
love when it
awesome.
happens.
That's so awesome. Oh, great. We can plan like a whole trajectory as well. That's fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all about it. So before we get started into all my millions of questions, do you want to tell the audience just a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. My name is Tamara Howell. I'm a UK qualified psychotherapist and I'm based in France, quite near Paris. And I have an online practice. I create courses, webinars, coaching groups. I have a mastermind for therapreneurs, and I'm also the host of Therabundle.
Amazing. Just a ton of stuff on that resume.
I like doing lots of things and I don't like doing them forever. So I like trying new stuff a lot.
Yeah, I like that though, because the premise of this channel is all things we weren't taught in grad school. And I feel like, at least for my program, I'm curious to know if it was like this overseas. It was very much theories and maybe some practice, but not a lot of like practical knowledge or even like expanding, like you mentioned, like entrepreneurs. There wasn't anything business related in my program or most of the people I've spoken to. So was any of that involved in your programs or teachings?
Yeah, so we had a lot of like practical work from a clinical perspective. So we do placement, what we call a placement, which is like a practicum, I guess.
Yeah.
A placement like from very early on. And so you can kind of see what your career trajectory might be like if you went to work in a psychiatric hospital or if you went to work in an agency or a charity or something like that. But there isn't anything really about private practice or any of the other ways that therapists can create and make income. And so no, literally nothing about course creation, nothing about private practice, nothing about business management, nothing about like profit management or how to be sustainable or anything like that. No, nothing.
Yeah. So it's the same as here. There's just like a very limited bit of here's what a therapist is and what they do.
Yes.
So I like that as you ran through the stuff you're doing. I'm like, that's a little of everything and nothing that we were taught. So it's really exciting that you're making your own path.
Yeah, thank you. I think what often happens is I learn something and then I adapt it to our industry or the way I do things, and then often what happens is someone says, "Oh, can you tell me how to do that?"
Mm-hmm.
And then someone else will say, "Oh, can you tell me as well?" And then I'll think like, "Okay, well, I'll do a webinar," and
Yeah.
then and then I record it, and then I something like that. So it's usually like it's not necessarily something that I sort of go out there to learn to teach. It's like someone says, "Oh, well, you know how to do that. Why don't you tell us?"
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's kind of a cool way of getting into course creation.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of happens naturally, organically.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, what made you want to become a therapist? How did you get on this path?
I think, like many people, I had a very profound experience of therapy myself,
Hmm.
and several times, there have been several moments in my life where I've really felt like, wow, that's amazing. This has completely changed the way I think, the way I feel, the way I live. And at several points in my life, I thought I'd love it if I could do that for someone,
Mm-hmm.
as well. Um, and then I don't know how, I just sort of fell into a crowd that was thinking about doing a particular certificate, diploma, and then a master's in addiction psychology and counseling. So we specialized in addiction. And I was just sort of in this kind of community, and I ended up just sort of being guided into that, really. And that's how I ended up there. And then I've never looked back, really. But I think really when I was 17, I thought to myself, oh, I'd quite like to be a therapist. But I'm very like I think I'm very romantic about the whole idea of being a career therapist, because I think it's almost like we do the training
Mm-hmm.
to be able to professionally do what we already are. Like I think we're already therapists, we're all therapists, and then we just learn how to do that professionally. So I'm quite
Mm-hmm.
sort of, I'm quite romantic about that.
Yeah, I found that a lot of people started informally.
Hmm.
So I know in oh gosh, one of the classes I had in high school, the teacher wasn't that great, and we'd also often have a lot of time to ourselves. So I'd have a table in the back, and people would come tell me their problems. And I was like 16. And so I think we all just kind of, most of us ended up being that friends that heard everyone's issues, or were very, helpful and empathetic. And we kind of had all the elements. And like you said, then we just get the formal education.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's we all have a lot of things like that in common, I
Mhm.
think, like good reflective skills and, desire for learning and understanding and connection with each other and stuff like that. So I think, when we look at like the values that join us together and the qualities that join us together, I think it's often like it's not like what made you a therapist, but like, okay, you are a therapist, what made you do the training kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like how did you get to the bit where you got the degree, as opposed to, what kind of, formed you. I sort of think we come out this way.
I would agree with that. Yeah. It's like what made you commit and like put a ring on it when it
Right,
comes to
right, right.
therapy. Yeah,
Exactly.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, tell me what led you from that traditional path of being a therapist into creating courses, and how has that shaped your practice or your business?
A few years ago, I took a bit of time off for parental leave. And then when I came back, I thought I'm going to overhaul all my paperwork. And so
Mm.
I went through my regulatory board. It's not regulatory, a membership board, which is a bit like a regulatory board, but we don't have regulation in the UK in exactly the same way. So I went through all the ethical guidelines, and I went through all of my paperwork, and I made sure everything lined up, and like every single point was dealt with in my informed consent, and there was a form for this and there was a form for that. And then I paid a researcher to go backwards and forwards. And then I thought, oh, Americans pay lawyers to check this paperwork. I'm going to do what they do because they're like really on it. So then I paid a lawyer. Everyone was like, why are you paying a lawyer? We don't need to do that in the UK. And I was like, no, if the Americans do it.
Yeah, we're paranoid over here. You want to get everything right.
So I was like, well, I'm going to do that too. Why not? It's going to make
Yeah.
my paperwork like super profesh. And then so I did. And then one of my colleagues was like, oh, I'll buy a copy from you. And then another one said, well, I'll buy a copy from you. And then
Wow.
another one said, and then I was like, oh, I'm just going to set up a website because I can't keep emailing people and setting up a PayPal invoice and whatever. So that was my first one, really. I mean, it's not really a course, but it's a resource that I created.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember. I did some free things where like I would keep being useful in Facebook groups on a particular topic. And then someone was like, can we, when 100 people say, can you email it to me? Can you email it to
Mhm.
me? And then so I just put it in a Teachable course. And then it's still one of my most popular courses. It's a free course about how to write your directory listing.
Mm.
And so just from a particular, there are lots of courses like that out there, but just from a particular kind of perspective.
Yeah.
Um, and and then after that, I sort of, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I did a group program for people who wanted to switch to online therapy that hadn't done it before, because I'd already been doing it for 10 years at the
Oh,
beginning of the
wow.
pandemic. And so, so I did like a little group program on that, and then, little webinars here and there.
Mhm.
And so it's always like I sort of see something or someone asks me to do something, and then I make it. And yeah, and I usually, like, all my courses are to do with business, to do with strategy, to do with administration, as opposed to kind of clinical skills. I don't know why. I'm just like super interested in how we manage our businesses and
Mhm.
how to make profitable and sustainable businesses.
Yeah, I love all of that stuff too. I'm getting more and more into the structure part of it. And I think I kind of miss learning. So it's kind of
Mm,
fun to learn and then also to teach, but in a setting that I'm comfortable with and on my terms. So
yes.
as you're talking about courses, I'm like, that makes sense. You already were kind of informally teaching. You just found a way to streamline it. So it also didn't take up as much time for you as
Yes.
responding to every comment and having to engage so often with each individual.
Absolutely. I mean, I have found that because now people talk to me about course creation pretty often, and a lot of people in my coaching groups and my mastermind, create courses and resources and things like that. And then, of course, with Therabundle. So people talk to me about that. And what I often find is that people are already teaching. We're
Mhm.
just talking about like, what delivery method do you want to use? So you might be, you might not call it teaching, you might be delivering obviously therapy, but there might be some psychoeducation involved in that,
Right.
right? Or you might be helping a colleague with a particular skill. So all we're talking about with course creation is delivering that information in a different, with a different platform. We're just talking about doing it either as a self-study or as a group program, as a live training, as a downloadable resource. There are so many different ways of doing it. And I think people get intimidated a lot of the time with course creation. And I want to reassure people, you're already giving that knowledge away. We're just talking about how do you package it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that makes sense. And it sounds like, again, like you've done it organically. Here's the things that you've noticed that there was a need for. And it's
Mm.
interesting that every single thing you've mentioned is stuff, again, that is not taught in grad school. So no
Yeah.
wonder people are like clamoring for that information because they already have a lot of the clinical background formally, but not the business side.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And also there are different kind of stages of that. I think a lot of the
Hmm.
time we feel like, oh, what we really need is marketing knowledge, like especially when
Hmm.
we start our private practices. But there's so much stuff that, people will often talk to me about, like SEO and websites and doing YouTube channel and, podcasts and things like that. And I'm like, what about like your very immediate colleagues? Have you built your referral network? So, there's a lot of the time we sort of think we need to learn all these
Hmm.
things, but actually we need to work on things that are much closer to us. So, so I don't know. I kind of find that stuff really, really interesting. Also, like what direction we get taken in and what we want to learn. But there are also different levels to that. So you might start off by learning about referral networking, and then you might learn about like directory listing or creating a website. And then you might think, okay, well, now I'm going to be a podcast guest. And
Hmm.
then you might think, oh, maybe I'm going to be a podcast host.
Yeah.
And so there are all these different layers to the things that we can learn. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you think that going these different routes has shaped your business or your practice?
Well, I very intentionally last year, because I knew I'd be moving to France and that my schedule was going to be much more dependent on having a school age child.
Mm,
And we also was so ill last winter. We
mm,
caught like 5 different viruses. It was unbelievable. But so towards the end of last year, I put a plan in place where I wouldn't do any more live group coaching or
mm.
one-to-one work in the evenings, even though I actually prefer working in the evenings. But I knew that I wouldn't have soundproofing available. Once I have to only do those things when my home is empty, and I knew that I
Mhm.
don't have the soundproofing for that, and obviously when my child's asleep. So I had to change my schedule. And then I also decided that I wanted to do fewer live hours. So I created coaching groups and a
Mm.
mastermind, and I reduced my private practice one-to-one hours.
Wow.
And so I think that, I've been able to do that as a result of, first of all, diversifying into group settings, so
Mhm.
creating groups, and also by moving into other income streams, like doing live launches for courses or email launches for courses, and also creating Therabundle. So Therabundle is such a huge project, but until we're promoting it, I don't really have to do any live calls. So I
Mm,
don't have to
mhm.
be on Zoom. I can just work around my own availability and schedule. And
Yeah.
so I know it sounds very convoluted, but that's been really important for me to move into course creation and multiple income streams in order to have the schedule that I need, and to be able to pick up my kid twice a week and, take him to football and to all that kind of stuff. So that's what I think creating multiple income streams does. It just creates more flexibility and freedom.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you found things that work for you, not vice
Yeah.
versa. I think a lot of people tend to build practices or businesses based off the clients. And I think some of that might be like that scarcity mindset. They're just so fearful they're not going to have the clients or
Mhm.
the audience that they just start taking everybody or kind of bending their own boundaries. But it sounds like you first created the schedule that you wanted and then fit
Yes.
in the other things to that.
Yeah, this is like a thing that I've learned over the last couple of years. I didn't start off that way. I started off being like, you want to work on Saturday morning? Yeah, sure, whatever.
Hmm.
And then really only over the years I've started to be much more definitive. And before the pandemic, I had an in-person practice in Harley Street in London. And it's like very expensive to rent a room there. And I would rent in 6-hour blocks. And so that meant that I had to schedule in that
Hmm.
time, right? And the in person, like online was different. But that really taught me to be very strict with myself about my working hours. And I carried that over into my online practice that I have then, when I have gone back to 100% online, I've really kept that strictness. I'm only doing this many live hours. I'm only working at these times. I'm only available, during these hours. And
Hmm.
it also taught me, I think, in 2-week blocks. Instead of thinking weekly, I plan in sort of fortnight. Just think fortnightly. I think in 2-week blocks. So I often see clients every 2 weeks. And
Hmm.
that basically means I have like a busier week of live work and then a busier week of admin and website
Hmm.
building and course creation and things like that. And so that has been really interesting because I've had that rhythm the entire year, and all my coaching courses, coaching groups and mastermind, they're every 2 weeks and they're in the same week. So I have like a busy week and then
Hmm.
I have a week of, actually getting down and creating stuff. So that's been really interesting as well.
Yeah, that's really smart though, to have that structure to it, because I feel like otherwise everything could get mixed up, especially the more sources of income you have or the more places that require your energy, the more structured I think you would have to be. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I've also found that having that space means that if I'm ill, then I've got more flexibility around
Hmm.
rescheduling as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because life happens and you're in an amazing location. I would always want to be going places. So to have that room to be like, oh, this week's a little slower. Like, I want to just go to this other country next door, or like things that would be nice, like life wise, not just work wise.
I don't pop over to other countries all the time, but I do go to London. I do go to London a fair bit. And I do, that is nice being able to do that, or to have visitors, or to be able to just pop into Paris
Uh,
and, have have a little walk around. Even if it's raining, it's still
yeah,
beautiful in the rain. So, yeah, that is nice to be able to have a bit of flexibility around that.
absolutely. So, with therapists that are maybe interested in starting courses, what tips would you have for them to start that journey?
So I think first of all, um, thinking about like what you love to share with your clients.
Hmm.
What's the thing that comes up really often that you love to explain? Is it polyvagal theory?
Hmm.
Is it, are you really, do you really love brain spotting? Do you want to spread the word about brain spotting? Are you do you really like teaching other people about profit first? So there's all these things that if you ask yourself, like, how many times have I explained something and I really enjoy it when the other person understands and they get something from it, then that's often the thing that kind of pulls me towards course creation. But I think mainly it's just remembering you are already imparting knowledge, you are already helping people in the world, and we're just talking about putting it in a different format.
Yeah.
So, it's important to remember you can pay people to help you with things that you don't want to learn, and you
Mhm.
can learn all the things that you do want to learn about course creation.
Yeah, and I like some of the tips you kind of had some sprinkled throughout about, seeing what people are asking you questions about all the time. What are people seeking you out for? And I love how you said, what do you like talking about? Because I think sometimes people are so quick to be like, I could do this or I could do that. And it's like, well, if you're going to devote a lot of time to something, you probably want to like it. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. People ask me all the time, oh, can you teach me about this? Or can you tell? There's some things I just don't want to. I just
mhm.
don't really feel it. Like, so I'm kind of interested. Like, what would if you were going to pick like a first thing to do
Yeah.
next, what would be the next thing that you create a course on?
Yeah, so I'm very type A. So I'm
Okay.
big on like organization and structure. And so probably like I've had a few thoughts, but one of them has been like how to streamline all your
Mhm.
processes. So whether that's email templates, that's consult calls, that's just anything to streamline to help you preserve your free time is really where I'm
Yes.
at. So that's an
Yeah.
idea I've had floating around for a bit.
Yeah, lovely. That's really awesome. And I think when you do that in your practice anyway,
Hmm.
then you may as well share it, you know? So I
Yeah.
remember when I reset up my practice, you know, 5, 6 years ago, I was very diligent about writing all my SOPs, my standard operating procedures. And and I was able to replicate that and then share that with other people, but only because I had been through it myself. And there's
Yeah.
no reason not to share the work that we do. And there's no reason that you shouldn't be paid for it.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of where my line was, where I was like, I need to start, like you said, diversifying income. I feel like my practice is solid. I'm really happy with where that's at. I'm building this YouTube channel and this whole other thing for new therapists. So now I'm like, ooh, what's next? And so courses, I think, is on my list. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, lovely. And I think, you know, there's so many different ways of doing courses as well. You know, you can like live teach, you can evergreen, you can, you know, you can do it as a group program, you can do live rounds. There are so many different ways of doing it. And I just
Yeah.
think it's really fun because there's kind of something in it for all of our different kind of personalities and preferences and things like that. Like I love teaching online. I
Yeah.
love being online and I love facilitating groups online. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's absolutely amazing. But loads of people don't really like it. It's too much. It's like really intense. There's too many faces, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so I think, you know, there's a style of creation for everyone.
Yeah. And I like that, like you said, there's so many options. And again, that's something nobody talks about. So
Yeah.
it's just, and I love the flexibility with it because you could maybe start something live. And like you mentioned earlier, pulling away from some of those live hours, make something evergreen and have that kind of sit there and
Yeah.
devote your time to either the next thing or whatever it is that you want to work on for yourself. So,
Yes.
and I like how you're saying that therapists should share information because that kind of pulls into my next thing about collaboration. It sounds like you've done a lot of collaboration, whether it's with lawyers, whether it's with other therapists, whatever that is, kind of finding those ways to make your life easier and have those resources and tools that you need or that you can have as you're creating things. So, why do you think that it's important for therapists to collaborate, in your own personal opinion?
I mean, first of all, it's a lonely life being in
Hmm.
private practice if you don't collaborate and connect with other people. And like, you know, I just think we can end up really lonely, sort of just, you know, working away, helping other people, and then like who's looking after us and who are we connecting with? So first, that's very first and foremost, it's a lonely life without
Hmm.
people to collaborate with. Second thing is it's easier to promote other people than ourselves.
Yeah.
It's much easier for me to sing about everybody else's praises. It's much easier for me to share about this awesome person. And I love being the signpost. I love being the person that's like, go over here and go over here. And this person can tell you this, and this person can tell you this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool role to have as well, being able to direct people
Hmm.
to resources. Um, Collaboration, I really think of it in lots of not just in like two people making something together, but also when we build our referral networks, I think that's collaborative. I
Oh, yeah.
think that the more we refer out, the more referrals come back to us
Hmm.
directly or indirectly. Just that's the way of the world. The more we build holistic and integrative treatment plans with other professionals, the more that, you know, comes back towards us. And it's the same, you know, it's the same with courses. So I've done I've done workshops with colleagues. I used to do this money mindset workshop. It was so fun. And
Oh.
it was all day Saturday, all day Sunday, I think, 2 days. Yeah. And it was really cool. And me and this other therapist, we would promote it and then we would share the work and we would create the slides together. And it was super awesome. We just split
Mhm.
it. We just split all the profit and it was
Mhm.
really, really fun. And it almost didn't really matter. The money didn't really matter. It was just a great experience. And I've done loads of other bits and pieces, but I think I learned that from when I first moved to France. I've lived here a few times, and the first time I moved to France about 12 years ago, I made a list of all the therapists I could find online, and I wrote to them. I sent them letters in the post with
Mm,
like proper snail mail.
nice.
And one of them wrote to me and invited me to go and meet her. And she went through my list of all the contacts, and she was like, yeah, contact this person and I'll introduce you to this person. And oh, don't bother
Wow.
with that person. And that one doesn't live here anymore. And all that. And she was incredibly generous and built
Mhm.
my practice in 3 months. I had a full practice as
Wow.
a result of that generosity.
Mhm.
And a lot of us are very competitive and very guarded about that stuff. And
Mhm.
I watched her generosity and then continued that by sharing with other people. And I saw in 3 months I had a full practice. And so for me, it's always just been an easy yes to supporting and collaborating with other people, because it all comes back in the end.
Oh, absolutely. Like good karma and good connections and all of that, which I think is so helpful. And like you said, especially in solo private practice, which is what I'm in, and virtual.
Yes.
So
Yes.
my dogs are my coworkers. It's just me and them all day. So it's nice to go out and meet people or have these opportunities to be able to interview people, meet people in different places that I'm just like
Yeah.
I can talk to, learn from, share things with. And I think it's really fun. So along that same note, I want to know how you came up with the Therabundle. What can you explain what it is and why it is?
Yeah, sure. So a few years ago, I bought a bundle from Yael Bendahan called the Powerhouse Mum Bundle. And
Mm,
then as a result of that, and I was like, this seems, I got it, I saw it on a Facebook ad, and I was
ah,
like, this is too good to be true. This is
mhm,
ridiculous. $100 for all these courses. So it's like a collection of courses from different independent creators. And then just for a few days only, you pay $100, you get an access pass to everything. And I was
wow,
like, this is not true. I thought
mhm,
I'm going to try it anyway. And then I did. I paid the $100, and then I could sign up for all of those things. And I didn't even know what most of them meant at the time, because it was all online business.
yeah,
And then I bought another one. Dharma Jew, she does one called the Lazy Funnel Bundle.
mm,
And so I did that. And I also didn't really understand, because I didn't know what a funnel was or anything like that. But I'd sign up for things, and then I'd arrange them in a Trello board. And then
mhm,
occasionally I would go in there into the search function and be like, email templates, or, something,
right,
I don't know, course outline or something like that. And I would find, oh, I've got a course. I signed up for a course on that.
right,
This is so cool.
mhm,
And then when I bought those bundles, I thought, well, you know, so many therapists, we don't have the money to spend thousands of dollars on multiple courses. We don't even know who's a good course creator on a
mhm,
particular topic. We don't even know who to follow on this,
yeah,
we have no idea who's going to, talk about neurodiversity, neurodivergence with an affirming lens. We don't know if
mhm,
we're going to end up taking some do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I was like, well, what if we just did this for therapists and I got to choose them all?
yay,
And then I got to meet them all and have a party. And
oh,
then we put all our courses in. And so we did it last year. And that was super fun. And then even some people who bought the bundle last year spent the year creating courses so that they could be in this year's bundle.
oh my
So,
gosh,
so awesome. And now we've got 93 contributors for this year.
wow, my gosh,
And
I'm
so
like a
for
dollar a person.
exactly, exactly. So it's like all is just about $1 per course. Yeah. And the collective value of all of the courses is $8,721, which means that, okay, no one's going to do this, but if you went to 93 different websites and bought all our courses, it would cost you
Yeah.
$8,721. And instead, for 1 week only, from the 24th until the 31st of October, it will cost $100 for an all access pass to as many of those courses as you like.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
That's so affordable, and I'm a deal person. I gotta look for the coupons, like, I'll wait till something goes on
Yeah,
sale, so and I like to, especially since this is geared more towards newer therapists really aren't making much money at all.
exactly.
So, they can't afford a $2,000 course on something, and let alone all of these different options. So, I feel like this is something that makes it very affordable and accessible to people across all stages of their careers.
Absolutely. So I've really thought about that when we were creating the bundle, we thought about different kind of themes. So we think about marketing, about administration and business management. We think about professional and personal development. We think
Mhm.
about website creation goes with marketing. We think also about alternative income streams. So there's a lot of course
Mhm.
creation stuff in there, and then also inclusivity and affirming practice. And
Nice.
so those are the sort of, that's the themes, the focus for this year. But within that, we've really tried to choose choose offers, resources for different stages of our careers. So there's
Mhm.
something for people who are working in an agency who've just qualified. There are offers in there for the more established therapists, for retiring, even for expanding
Wow.
into online income streams, which you can do at any point of your career, of course, for therapreneurs. And there's
Mm.
loads of really cool stuff in there that is actually like worth more than the $100 anyway. So Megan Hale, for example, has a course in there which is usually sold for $350. And her course is all about creating your signature program that takes you from one to one to many.
Wow.
Megan Gunnell has a course in there that's all
Mm.
about creating group therapy programs. Um, so there's things that will get you started with the sort of course creation from a live perspective. But
Mhm.
then there's also a course in there about like mastering PowerPoint presentations, which is I need to brush up on. I definitely need to brush up on that. There's also webinar promo templates from Sandra Vanderlee. So Sandra is an amazing copywriter. She's not a therapist, but people buy her copywriting templates all the time. And she's done a lot of copywriting for me.
Mm.
And she's awesome. And she has promo templates for webinars. So if you ever want to do a live webinar, then
Yeah.
this means you could buy these templates, you just edit them, and then you don't have to come up with it from scratch.
Mhm. I love cheat sheets.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all these things for different stages. You create your slides, you can write write your webinar, you can plan your launches. Danny Fairhurst has a course about organizing your business in Asana. So that's a planning platform.
Yeah.
Um, so there's loads of stuff in there for definitely for therapists, lots of clinical skills, but there's also things in there for being, entrepreneurial and trying new things and using different organization methods.
Oh, I love that because that's like such a good supplement for my channel. Talking about the things they don't teach you in grad school is AKA
Yeah.
everything you just mentioned.
Yes.
So I think that that's going to help expand on that education and also show great examples of people who are out here doing different things to maybe just help other therapists see what they're capable of doing or spark some ideas for them. And like you said, maybe streamline some of their processes as they're figuring out what they want to do next.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I really love is that there were people who wrote to me last year when they bought the bundle and they were like, this is so cool. I want to be in next year. What do I do?
Yeah.
And then I said, well, this is the criteria for next year, because I'm very specific about, like, I don't have any memberships, I don't have any drip feed.
Hmm.
It's all self-study. You're in control. Once you buy it, it's yours. You have access to it. You do it in your own time.
Hmm.
You download the resources that you need and stuff like that. So it's very sort of autonomous,
Hmm.
the learning process. And so I just told people, well, this is the way that you do it. And then some people joined coaching groups and asked me questions about that. Some people took other courses. They did coaching with other contributors. There's quite a lot of little contributor pockets of
Yeah.
supporting each other, lots of little Voxer groups of people that are
Oh.
still in contact. Um, and then some of those people are in the bundle, and that's so awesome that we have people who are established course creators, leaders, private practice setup, all sorts of things like that. And then we've got Profit Julie Jerez talks about Profit First for
Mhm.
therapists, which is so amazing. And then we've also got fresh creators, because we really
Mm.
want independent creators. This is the difference between buying a bundle and doing a course with an institution with the same course that goes
Yep.
around and around and around. We're talking to people who are like in their private practices. This is how they're working. This is the language they're using. These are the tools they're using. And now they're going to share it with you right now.
Mm.
Yeah,
I love that. So it's new and fresh because everything has shifted so much. I mean, I didn't really see much
exactly.
anything about online therapy before COVID. And like you said, you've been doing it for years. So somebody
Yeah.
like you that can come in and be like, hey, here's how you guys do things. And then now, as
Yes.
people are coming up with different online spaces and things to do. It's nice that there's a wealth of knowledge from different stages and people who are actually doing the things they're teaching. They're not
Yes.
just teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really tried to bring focus of like diversity of topics, of themes, of the way that things are taught as well. So
Mhm.
there's like some sort of master classes, some little, if you like, courses and short videos. We tried to do that also to include and promote and feature people from underrepresented communities in the
Nice.
therapy and online business space. So that's been a real focus. Obviously, we have much more work to do with that. We'll continue to focus on that. But I think it's like, I feel like there's something in the bundle that most people will have a look at it and there will be something really valuable in there for them.
Mhm. Oh yeah. And with that much like diversity of topics and everything else, even if there's something that they might not think is right for them right now, there
Yes,
will be somewhere down the line, it sounds like. And since you have
for
access, it's
sure.
not limited, then you can grow with the different things in the bundle. I mean, I know there's been things I've been exposed to that I never, like YouTube, that I never would have thought I'd have a YouTube channel. And then came across something, I was like, I could do that. That's actually a great platform. So maybe even if someone's stuck, having this like wealth of this whole library of different ideas and seeing what people are doing might help get them out of that stuckness into whatever they're going to do next.
It's actually like a really good way of thinking about it. It's like a resource bank, like a resource
Yeah.
library. And actually, we've got 2 YouTube courses in there, and we've got 2
Oh,
podcasting courses in there as well. So
very
yeah,
cool.
it is really cool, I think, because I don't think historically people have thought about using going being a guest on a podcast as a way of expanding private practice. I think that's been
Hmm.
quite a new way of thinking about
Yeah.
marketing. But there's no reason not to. There's no reason to go and share all the things that you share with your clients. There's no reason to not, there's no reason to keep those skills in here,
Hmm.
like let's
Absolutely.
share that with more people.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And now that there's so many different ways of sharing, it's like, why not? You pick the platform or, way that works best for you. But
Yes.
wow. Well, I'm excited to buy it because I'm again type A. I like all the resources. I like all of the things. I like
Yeah.
learning. So I feel like something like this would be great for me. And again, the audience too. This is going to help supplement the basic knowledge that they have from school and maybe help them grow into more of the therapist that fits their life versus
Yeah,
the other way around. But
absolutely.
well, for my last question, are there any additional tips or tools or anything that you could think of, advice that you'd want to pass down to some of the newer therapists out there?
Yeah, so for people like us who really love learning, because I feel like
Mhm.
we have that in common, like we're really into, oh, I want to learn this and I really
Yeah.
want to learn that. And so for people like us who really want to learn things, I
Mhm.
think that what often happens is I end up putting pressure on myself to learn things very quickly
Yeah.
and that it's got to kind of pay off. And so my tip, I don't know if it's really a tip, but my thing that I have learned has been helpful for me is to make sure that part of what I'm learning is gentle. And so by that, I mean learning something that is purely for me and not necessarily for something that's going to put pressure on me, like earning or my business or for my clients, but something that's really for me. And what I love about so if I can give you some examples in the bundle,
Mhm.
for example, Lisa Curtis has made a course about mindfulness and birding,
Oh,
as
wow.
in learning about birds. And I just think, for me, that's like the first thing that I want to go and check out, because I think that when we first replenish ourselves and we take space for ourselves, so much easier to learn all the other things and go out there and not get too muddled up and stuff like that. So that's kind of, I don't know if it's really a tip or just more of like my experiences. When I do something that replenishes me, it's much easier to think about going into new spaces and doing new things like course creation and building practices and expanding into group practice and all those
Mhm.
kinds of things.
Yeah, I love that though, because I think there is a tendency. I feel like I don't know if it's definitely an American thing for sure, but I'm sure it goes to other countries of like that hustle culture.
Yeah.
Like Americans always, it's like, what do you do? And working hard is some kind of like badge of honor, and there's not a
Yes.
lot of work-life balance. And I'm sure it's like that in other places as well, but I feel like there's not a lot of slow down. There's not, like you said, mindfulness. Even some of the stuff you're learning has to be for a financial purpose, it feels like, versus maybe
Yes.
personal growth. So I like that there's even within the bundle variety of that. Not everything has to be like hustle, hustle, hustle. It's let's also kind of
Yes.
replenish yourself, which is nice.
Absolutely. I mean, I do also think, yes, it's definitely cultural, but it's also, I mean, that's also like a particular work ethic that some of us are, kind of,
Yeah.
that we've
Personality.
absorbed or we've been brought up with, or, there's been kind of, kind of an influence. And, and that of course means that we end up, for newer therapists, I think, when I was new, I never thought I would burn out, and I would just kind of
Hmm.
thought people were a bit tired and they weren't managing
Right.
their schedules very well. And that's not the case, and I think, um, if we put our replenishment and our rest first, people often think that that's so silly to say that, but the more rest and replenishment we get, the more resources we have
Hmm.
to be able to work and to earn and to create. And I guess that, my sort of proof for this is that I get all my best ideas when I'm out for a walk, or when
Hmm.
I'm emptying the shopping into the fridge, or, when my hands are busy and I'm doing something else, or I'm feeding the
Yep.
cow something in the shower, something like
Hmm.
that. We get all our best ideas there. And I always think to myself, it's because I had space for a minute.
Yep.
So I think that's really important that we put that first, basically.
Yeah. And even as you were talking, I thought about if you do create all the things, but you haven't really replenished yourself, you're not actually going to enjoy the things that you
100%.
created. You'd be too burned out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You've got my mind turning all about your streamlining process and stuff now, and like
Yeah.
how you can put it together and things like that. Like, what do you envisage, like teaching that live, or would you put together the resources and sell them evergreen, or what's
I'm
your
thinking
plan?
evergreen, but with the option of like adding a live component if you wanted to as like a bonus, if somebody needs to like talk it through. So, because I know some people are more visual learners, some people they're not great with the self study and they need that person to walk them through. Some people just need that extra boost of confidence as they're doing some of these things. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where my head's at. But I like how you said too, you can evolve it.
Yes.
You did. So,
Totally. Yeah, so absolutely. In fact, one of my courses actually used to just be a download. It's my clinical will, and it was just a download. And I mean, you can still buy it as a download off my paperwork site. And then I did a live training on it. So I sold that as a webinar or a workshop, I'm not sure. A webinar.
okay.
And then after the webinar, then I did it as an interactive workshop.
Hmm.
And they're all the same material, right?
Mhm.
Just expanding it. So then it expanded into this workshop. I think it was a couple of hours long, and people would go and do breakout room, and things like that.
Wow.
And then most recently, a few months ago, I ran it as a live week, as a live round. And so you would get the masterclass, the download, the BizHub doc, which is like a document where you just put all your information so you keep it tidy.
Okay.
And then I did a whole week of lives in a Facebook group, and a live session where people could discuss with each other. And so there are so many different iterations that you can provide. And now I've done all of them. Now I'm going to put it in the bundle. So there's this a whole other way that people can benefit from it as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love the creativity and the flexibility of it because I never like to be stuck. I think that's one of my personal things that I just don't ever want to feel stuck or trapped in a situation.
Right. Yeah.
So I love that there is even something you create, you can move it around, you can shift it, you can see even what your audience responds to. So I
Yes.
really love
Yeah.
that. So you've inspired me. Maybe I'll be in the bundle next year. I gotta hear
Fantastic. I'm
it.
so excited. This is all part of my cunning plan as I go on YouTube channels and I find new contributors for next year.
Yeah, it's working. Sold.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this today. I know the time difference, like there's a lot going on and you've got a lot of promotions. So I really appreciate you being here in this space.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so generous of you, and so welcoming of you to have me on here, talk about something. I'm so excited that you're going to be able to share with people who are watching, and who follow you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you create as well in the future.
Yeah. Well, if you guys want to follow everything that she's doing, all the links will be below. If you want to check out the Therabundle, that link will be right at the top. So, because I know I'm buying. But go ahead and follow everything. Subscribe to my channel if you want to stay on top of other things, and let me know in the comments what you think about the bundle. Thank you so much for being a guest. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good day, everybody. Bye.